chilly fall night, and my 7-year-old bones shake under the fluorescent lights of my family's side garage. My dad's in front of me, and he kneels down to my level to give me a hug. There's tears streaming down his face. To this day, I can't remember why him and I were in this situation, but the words that he said to me are forever ingrained onto my soul. You're gonna be my rock. You're gonna be the reason I stopped doing cocaine. I was a child full of curiosity. I stumbled across my dad's wallet in the bathroom, and I picked it up and I started pulling the credit cards out of the pockets and sifting through the dollar bills, and a piece of newspaper fell out from in between. I picked it up and I carefully unfolded each perfectly creased corner of that piece of newspaper to reveal a pile of white powder. My stomach twisted. I was unaware of what I just discovered, and I ran and grabbed a piece of paper. On that piece of paper, I wrote, "I wish you wouldn't." And I put it on top of that powder, and I folded everything back and put the wallet right back where I found it. As a young girl, I was cursed with the burden of my dad's addiction. But to be honest, I had a really happy, amazing childhood. And while my upbringing was tarnished with addiction, I was raised to believe that I could do anything I wanted if I put my mind to it. My family owned and operated a garbage business, and I learned at a young age that I didn't want anything to do with it, mostly because of the turmoil and lawsuits that were happening between my dad and his sister and their parents. Also, it was trash. I had dreams of running the marketing departments of Microsoft and Nike and the like, and it actually landed me across the street at Grand Central Bowling Alley, where I was the event director there. My office was in the basement next to soda machines and chaos, and the bowling pins would crash above me as I would answer the phone. "Grand Central Bowl, this is Lexy, how can I help you?" That day, I'd booked a party for a Nike agency, and I should have been happy with the $5,000 they just spent on a bowling party. I hung up the phone and I paused. I picked it back up and I pressed redial, and that same woman that booked the party answered the phone. "Hi, sorry to bother you. This is Lexy from Grand Central again. I was just wondering, are you guys hiring?" I had a job at that Nike agency in 2 weeks. But more importantly, I had the first tangible evidence that if I wanted to change something in my life, I was gonna have to take the steps to do that. If I wanted to escape the basement of a bowling alley and soda machines, I was gonna have to make myself do that. Fast forward a couple years, and I pushed through my career with the same tenacity, and in my late 20s, I started working for the Portland Business Journal. At this point in my life, my dad's addiction was pretty heavy, and he had been in and out of rehab. He was recently diagnosed with cancer, and our relationship was in turmoil. We would go through periods of not talking and fighting, and I watched him struggle with his own desire to escape his addiction. And I struggled and felt this guilt of this push and this pull of wanting to be there for him and wanting to build my own identity and escape all of it. I felt this need to take care of him, that if I didn't help, he would not survive. And I started to understand that the only way that I was gonna survive was by focusing on my career. At home, I was Jeff Garbarino's daughter. I was the product of addiction. At work, at the Portland Business Journal, I was Lexy Garbarino. I was rubbing elbows with the city's biggest leaders, and I was in my element. I was challenged every single day by my boss and mentor at the time, Craig Wessel. And then COVID hit. And events changed, and we pushed through, we pivoted, we did everything we needed to do to make it work. And I got a call from him one day. He wanted to meet me the next day at Lovejoy Bakery at 8 a.m. And I knew I was being fired. The event industry had dissolved overnight, and there was no more job for me. Sitting in those Adirondack chairs at the Pearl District Lovejoy Bakery, my jaw was on the floor. I was in disbelief at the words that Craig Wessel was sharing with me. He was gonna be retiring, and he was gonna put my name in for his position as the president and publisher of the Portland Business Journal. I was in shock. This was the opportunity. This was that door that opened for me. This was the escape ladder that I'd been building rung by rung to get away from everything that had consumed me. I'd made it to the top. I did it. But I was wrong. I didn't get the job as the president and publisher of the Portland Business Journal. But I did get that job, the president and publisher of the New Mexico Business Journal. And the same week that I got that job, my dad died. Instantly, the family business was in the lap of my brother and I was faced with a decision point in my life. I could go and chase that identity, that escape, that ladder that I'd built for myself, or I could turn my back on that and fall back into the responsibility of my family that felt so heavy for so long. I felt that same push and pull of wanting to be there and wanting to escape. Even with my father no longer physically in my life, the weight of his burdens and responsibilities sat so heavy on my shoulders. And after 30 years, I was exhausted from carrying that around. I defaulted. I went back to my family and I burned that escape ladder that I'd built, and I just figured I'll start over. Today, I'm CEO and co-owner of Garbarino Disposal, Global Leasing, and Western Recovery. I've started another business, Garbarino Management, and in the coming months, I'll make my first small business acquisition. I am leading our family's legacy in an industry that rarely meets a strong female leader like me. Because of everything that I went through, I've emerged as a compassionate leader. I've opened the eyes of my employees to futures that they would never have seen for themselves before because of the trades and the garbage industry. I've hired 2 ex-felons in just the last 2 years and completely turned their lives around. I work a lot in the foster community, and I've hired a former foster youth whose life is absolutely changed because of my leadership. That small business that I'll acquire, I'll do in partnership with my company's general manager, who worked for my grandfather, my father, and now for me. And his life will be forever changed because of this opportunity. His family's financial future will be different forever. I am the most fulfilled that I have ever been in my entire life. I'm living my purpose of uplifting others through the exact path that I thought was cursing me. But I didn't just get here. 5 years ago, when I worked at that Portland Business Journal, we used to host the EO Talks event. And I used to pass the name tags out at this event to everyone sitting in this room. And today, I'm standing on that stage, understanding that every single thing that I went through, all those curses were actually blessings, leading me from that table of name tags up to this stage. I used to think that I needed to escape that side garage of my family's home. I used to think I needed to get out of the basement of the bowling alley across the street. I used to think that I needed to escape the identity of a product of addiction. I used to think I needed New Mexico. The reality is, all of those things I was going through were building my capacity for resilience. I didn't need to escape anything. I needed to accept. When I look back at the past, I see this foundation. I see this strength. I see this resilience. I see a leader, and I see a lover of life. I know now that when things get heavy and when we're in those moments that it feels like there's just no way out, that's likely that start of that foundation, unlocking something in us that we didn't know we had. It's helping us find what our potential is. This is a story of unrecognized resilience. Because if we can take our lives and look at all those difficult things that we go through and dig a little deeper into them and find that little piece that maybe is a blessing, that's usually where we uncover who we really are. That's usually what unlocks that potential that we really have. We get wrapped up in money and fame and knowledge and all of this stuff, but that's all false escapes. The reality is, if we want to really unlock who we are and find our real potential, we have to accept who we are. We have to acknowledge everything that we've been through, and we have to step into that resilience that's actually always been inside. Thank you.